Hello, darlings. I am Shaunna Rodriguez. I am the best-selling author of the Sweet Seduction series, which you can find on Amazon. The first 3 books are out currently. Book 1 is a bestseller. It is currently free on Amazon. It will be going up to 99 cents shortly, so make sure you rush out and get your copy. Today, I thought that we could read an excerpt from it and go from there. A little bit about my character. Tara Parks is one of my main characters. She is a 20-something, ambitious, witty, charming, beautiful girl. 20-something. We remember those days of being 20, right? She had a dream of opening a bakery. She moved home after attending college in Paris, and she and her best friend, Detective Corey Wallace, opened the doors to Sweet Seductions Bakery about 7 years earlier. When she and Corey and their best friends are not baking cakes and scones and filling house full, of customers, she is helping Corey solve murders, and the bodies seem to just be piling up around them. So, anyways, that is a bit about my characters. Sweet Seduction is the name of her bakery, which I just told you. This is not an erotica book. It is a cozy mystery. My series does have cats in it. I hear that's a big thing right now. So it does have cats. The cats are in book 4. Anyways, so thank you for joining me. Let's get started. The book was written by yours truly. I hope so, because I own the copyrights to it. Cover was done by Dacre Combs, covers by Combs. The blurb was done by Kelly Smith. And my editing was done by Tony Michelle, Polished Pages. Sugar and spice and everything nice is not what you get with Tara Parks when it comes to the Creative Confections Bake-off. After 4 years of whisking, mixing, and whipping her way to the top at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, Tara's dream of owning her own bakery has finally come full circle. Returning home to Depoe Bay, she and best friend Corey Wallace have opened the doors to Sweet Seductions Bakery. Buddies since grade school, Corey Wallace and Stephen Briggs grew up sweeping the girls off their feet and breaking those same hearts from one side of the bay to the other. It seemed those 2 playboys would never grow up, but somehow they managed to enlist budding careers as detectives for the DBPD. In the midst of baking bundt cakes and flavoring fondant, Tara is dealing with the remnants of hers and Stephen's broken relationship, the inkling that Corey wants more than friendship, and the news that her nemesis, Ivy Flowers, has been cast in the competition for this year. How is a girl to focus with all this drama? Emotions are high and the sweet smell of vanilla fills the air the day of the bake-off. Everything is perfect. That is until the body of Ivy is found on the women's bathroom floor, and Tara's chapstick is in Ivy's cold, dead hand. That moves her to prime suspect. With more bodies piling up, will Tara's friends decipher this recipe for murder, or will she be next on the murderer's plate? Let's find out, shall we? Tara squatted down in front of her 4-tier wedding cake and examined it. Checking it from side to side as she spun the tray, she reached over and picked up the pastry bag filled with silver icing and screwed the Wilton star piping to the bottom, then placed the tip just above the icing and gave the bag a careful squeeze. She worked her way from the base to the small, square top. The cake was done in Tiffany blue, and she had chosen silver for the piping around each layer. She stood and admired her work, then stepped back and looked at it from a distance. She could really use a bottle of water right then, but wasn't certain she trusted leaving her work alone, given the fact that her arch-nemesis, Ivy Flowers, owner of Eye Cakes, a.k.a. Poison Ivy, was one of the competitors at this year's annual Creative Confections Summer Bake-off. The last time she had left anything unmanned, Ivy had sabotaged her strawberry and cream bundt cake, and then thrown the competition for the both of them. Needless to say, lesson learned. She sighed and leaned against the table and studied the cake. The more she looked at it, the more she started second-guessing herself about the quality of her work. "Hey, babe." She looked up to see Bradford Hunt standing next to her. Detective Bradford Hunt, as it were. He was a new transfer to the small coastal town of Depoe Bay, the place she called home. "Hey, you!" She hugged him. He hugged her back and kissed the top of her head, giving her butterflies. "Can I get you anything?" he asked her curiously. "Actually, yes. Can you guard my cake with your life while I go grab a bottle of water? I'll bring you one back, but I just can't leave it alone with Ivy on the loose," she told him, making him chuckle. "I would be honored to guard your cake." He winked and made her laugh. "You are a lifesaver." She tiptoed and kissed him softly and made his eyes sparkle. "Is it wrong to say that I wish that girl would just die already?" She sighed. He chuckled and rolled his eyes. "It's a gray area. But I can't blame you for feeling that way," he told her. "I bet if we were in private, you'd agree with me," she teased. Perhaps. Ask me again later. You know, we're in private," he teased back, making her laugh. "Don't leave. I don't care if the building is on fire. You take my cake with you," she told him and made him laugh. "I give you my word of honor, but if I stand here and guard your cake with my life, you owe me a dinner date." "Agreed." She turned and wiggled her hips and made him laugh. She waved over her shoulder, then hurried past the other bakers, who were finishing piping their cakes. A few of them had just started stacking, and one, Ella Rhodes, owner of Tasty Treats, had just started the hot pink fondant on her interestingly set cakes. They reminded her of something out of an Alice in Wonderland story. More like their tea party. She kept waiting for the Mad Hatter to pop out of the oven and start singing. She passed an empty table where a cake stood partially finished. The bottom tier had what looked similar to her Tiffany blue fondant. And then the white columns were in place for the second tier, which had been placed correctly. But the fondant was halfway covering one side, and then the other three pieces weren't covered at all. Several pastry bags sat along the table filled with icing that appeared to be untouched. She looked around confused, then peered over the table to see if the baker had dropped something and was searching for it. But no one was back there. She looked around puzzled, then shrugged, and continued on her way to the concession stand in the back of the Coliseum, where the bake-off was being held. She paid for 2 bottles of water, thanked the lady behind the counter, then hurried away as quickly as possible to get back to her table. She had to weave in and out of judges who were already starting to walk around and check the work, as well as spectators who had bought floor passes and were allowed in during the competition. She really needed to stop off at the ladies' restroom. She made a sharp right and darted inside. The Pepto-Pink bathroom. She looked at the color and grimaced as she ran into a stall. After satisfying her bladder, much better, she walked out and washed her hands. She was about to turn and leave when she saw what looked like a foot oddly positioned under the far stall door. "Hello," she called out and walked across the floor. She looked down and frowned at the small white tiles that made up the bathroom floor. It definitely needed to be grouted again. As she got closer, she realized something was wrong based on the cockeyed way that the legs were positioned. "Hello," she yelled and banged on the door, but got no answer. She groaned and got down on her hands and knees, peered under the stall, then screamed bloody murder and slid backwards. She turned and stumbled to her feet and ran out of the bathroom. She could see Corey, Bradford, Stephen, and Austin all standing at her table now. They turned when they saw her and waved their hands, and then stopped. She was screaming hysterically, and she sprinted towards them as fast as she could. Corey ran forward and caught her just as she burst through the crowd of people. She jumped up and down and screamed and pointed. And that's when another woman started screaming somewhere behind her. She watched as her boys pulled their guns and started talking into their earpieces as they ran in the direction she had just come from, where the screaming lady now stood. "She's dead!" Tara screamed, then started crying all over again. "Who's dead? Who's dead?" Her sister Gwen rocked her. Poison ivy in the bathroom. I found it. I found the body, Tara screamed. Corey. Stephen nodded his head. Corey looked in his direction as Stephen held up an evidence bag with a tube of blue and white moisturizing chapstick in it. It probably fell on the floor, when she bent down to check the body. Stephen shook his head at him. Well, where the hell was it? And where are you crying? Corey demanded to Stephen. It wasn't on the floor, Corey. It was in... He paused. Ivy was clutching the chapstick in her hand, he told him. Everyone turned to look at Tara, who was now so hysterical she crumbled to the ground. I hope that you have enjoyed this brief excerpt and that you go out and pick up your copy, find out what happened with Ivy, Tara, and the rest of the gang. Also, Cupcakes and Confessions is book 2 in the series. It is also 99 cents on Amazon. Make sure that you catch me, not outside of course, but catch me in a minute for the reading of Cupcakes and Confessions. Book 3 is also out. It is Sailing, Soufflés. No, actually it's not. It's Soufflé, Sailing, and Strangulation. Sorry, long titles. Anyways, I will also be reading that shortly. So, thank you for checking in, and I hope you enjoyed this brief read. Holler at you later. Thank you. Support your authors. Have a great night. Bye.